ladies. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas and a wonderful start to your new year. And today, Mom is going to share on episode 49 how to have a fresh start in 2021. So we hope that it encourages your heart as you face another year with God guiding you along. So we'll turn it over to Mom to share her wisdom.
All right. Okay. We've already started 2021, but I wanted to give some tips on how we can turn a corner in some areas that we may need to. One of the main things that I want to introduce this New Year episode is that you can teach your children about God's goodness, but they're seeing your peace and joy and trust in Him on a daily basis will have the most impact. So let's look at some of the things that we probably need to discard about things that happened and attitudes and problems in this last year. We know that there were a lot of trials as we maneuvered through the COVID virus, and some of you might have gotten it or have relatives that have gotten it, and so there's a lot of things heavy on your heart. I have a couple of Bible verses I want to introduce this episode to. Psalm 34 verse 8. And you know, since I'm talking to ladies, whether you're single or married, and maybe many of you have children, these verses are good to bring to mind at the New Year's start. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the woman that trusts in Him. You know, in the original, it's men, but if I just look like I was talking to men or just use the word men while we're talking to women, you might just want to transfer that responsibility to your husband. So the next verse is Psalm 36 verse 7, and it says, how excellent is thy loving kindness, O God. Therefore the children of, and I'm going to change it to women because that's whom I'm addressing, the children of women put their trust under the shadow of thy wings. So those are good reminders that are showing that trusting God and that, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. The children can see if you really live that out. And then also just sharing with them the loving kindness of the Lord. And that'll just be such an encouragement to children to want to go for refuge under the shadow of God's wings. So let's start out with some of the things. Now, you won't have all of these things, but you might have been troubled with some areas. Maybe you had a lot of fear and anxiety over this last year. Maybe people that are dear to you came down with COVID. And so there was a lot of fear going around the nation and around the world due to the virus. And we're going to have to, if you're struggling with that, you're going to have to change your focus to trusting in God, trusting in Him for His goodness, that He can work. Maybe you have some bitterness this year, maybe being at home and with family and people not doing what you think they should do, or maybe some harsh words have come up. There's been a lot of marriage problems due to the having to stay at home altogether and maybe work from home. So you need to focus on the good. You need to be the eye of the hurricane, and just if there's people reacting poorly around you, maybe you have teenagers or children that are missing school and friends, you can be the one that is just exuding creativity and enjoyment and help and an attitude of wanting to serve others. Now, you might have disappointments. You had expectations for this year. and you had all these plans, and they kind of came to a grinding halt. You need to learn to transfer and not focus on disappointments, but to learn to delight in the Lord. He is going to use this for good. He said, all to people that love God and are called according to His purpose. And if you know the Lord and you're saved, you can focus on all of God's wonderful attributes. Then you might have regrets. Maybe you've responded wrong to members of your family, your husband and your children. It's a good time, if you haven't already done it, to confess those sins to them and to the Lord, and seek His forgiveness, and also purpose to start new. And then lots of times we have expectations for how others are supposed to act toward us, and often they don't. And instead of just focusing on what they're doing wrong, what we can do is, what is our responsibility? If your children are acting badly and not doing well, there's some child training maybe that you need to shore up on, and so I encourage you to look at areas that you can take responsibility for and help to see this close quarters contact. Sometimes it makes it easier to see flaws and weaknesses in your children, and that you can help them and guide them gently to the right attitudes. Now, here's some tips that for maybe that you haven't done before and you might be motivated to do. Helpful ideas for 2021. I have a focus on God's promises and His sovereignty. And this, if you have young children, maybe this will just be a project for yourself to really put your roots down deep in God and who He is and His promises. Now, if you're whether you're a mother and your children are grown, or a mother with young children or teenagers, you can read biographies of past Christians who endured suffering. And that'll help us not to have such high expectation of everything always easy. It's not always easy. All down through the ages, people that trusted in God and followed Him, there were many times of persecution. So that would be a helpful dose of reality for you. Also, you can start a family answer to prayer box. That's always been a treasure for me, to be able to record in a visual way God's faithfulness in the past. Also, if you haven't done this, I would suggest, if you have elementary age children, that you read Little Pilgrim's Progress. If you have teenagers, that you go together through the regular Pilgrim's Progress that also is adapted for more modern day English, because there's a lot of lessons in that allegorical volume. It was written by Bunyan when he was in prison in England for pastoring a small church, and at that time only pastors connected to the Church of England could teach the Bible. So that is a great lesson on allegorical view of the Christian life, the challenges and the rewards, and God's helpfulness. Also, learn the great hymns of the faith. If you have elementary age children, you might want to assign one stanza of the hymn to each child, and they can stand up and lead that one. But there is so much good theology in the great hymns of the faith, and so I encourage that. And also go to sleep meditating on God's Word. And if you want to get more information on how I do that, you can go to session 30, and it's called Peace. So I'm not going to repeat that. And I just want to end with some stabilizing truths. And, you might want to look, there's a Bible app called eSword, and it's free, and you can download it. And it's such a nice resource. And one thing I like to use with eSword is that if you go through the King James Version with the plus on it, it gives you the Hebrew definition of the English words, or the Greek definition of the New Testament words. So I'm going to talk about two verses, one that you can meditate on, Romans 8:28. And we know that all things, and it says in that Greek New Testament words, it's to see, know, be aware, and consider daily, work together for good. And that's a far more exceeding benefit and purpose to them that love God. And the word for God there is the supreme God, magistrate. In other words, it's stressing his sovereignty. And then it says in the verse, to them who are called. It's interesting. The Greek word for that is invited, appointed, and a saint. And if you're saved, God calls you a saint. In the New Testament, Paul and Peter, when they're writing to Christians, churches, they use that word applied to normal Christians. And then, according to his purpose, is a setting forth, exposed before God. So God, before you came to know him, he knew that you were invited and appointed, and so he is in control, and you can rest in the fact that it is up to him. We have a verse from Proverbs, two verses actually, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, and these are Hebrew word meanings for the English in those passages. Trust in means to go for refuge, be confident in, be sure. And then the Lord, which is the self-existent eternal God, with all thine heart. And the heart there means the feelings, the will, and the intellect. It means the core center of everything that directs your thoughts. And it says, and lean not. Do not lean, rely, or rest on thine own understanding. You know, it's easy to think, oh, we've got it all together. We know how we're going to resolve this issue. But we need to take things to God and get his perspective in all thy ways. And that means course of life, mode of action, or custom. You know, years ago, when we were praying about what school to send our oldest son to, he was turning kindergarten age, and we prayed that God would give us direction on to which school. Our backyard bordered a elementary school, and there was a Christian school in town that would have let us him go free. So we were praying about that, and we acknowledged God had more wisdom than we did, and he knew the schools better and what was better. And God answered our prayer and sent from my sister in New York. We hadn't shared with anybody we were praying about this, but and also a friend up in Northern California, both communicated to me that they just heard a radio program about teaching your children at home. So that seemed to be an answer. We felt like kindergarten was pretty easy, and so we started, and not knowing that 27 years later, we would have taught our 7 children from kindergarten up to college age at home. And God was faithful all those years to help us to answer questions, to help us adapt to each child's learning style. So that's the custom. He shall direct thy paths. These paths that are straight, upright, will make right, pleasant, and prosperous. So God sees the big picture. He knows the future. He knows the past. He knows has a plan for your life. So just some things there to encourage you. And I was going to mention also, if this year has tugged so much at your fears and anxieties that you become depressed, or you have a friend that is really struggling, and there's a little bit more information on number, I think it's 27 or 28, called How to Get Up When You're Down. And at the end of that, it has some help that you can encourage somebody else. And so I hope this helps you. Just some reminders there, and to know that God never changes, and we have our ups and downs, but we can rest in the eternal God and His plan for us.
All right, ladies. Well, we are almost to 50 episodes, which is quite an accomplishment. We've been making these now for 2 years, and so we appreciate your sticking with us and your encouragement. And so hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you again next time.
So long.
Bye.